Hello and welcome to the Against the Fence podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because today's guest is a powerhouse in MMA journalism. If you've ever found yourself refreshing Twitter for the latest fight announcements, chances are this man was behind the breaking news. Known for his sharp insights, unparalleled accuracy, and deep connections within the MMA community, he's the go-to guy for things all fight related. Covering everything from local European events to the biggest UFC cards, he's truly a titan in the sports media landscape. Please welcome the man who's always one step ahead of the game, the one and only Marcel Dorff.
If I ever run for president, I want you to be my spokesperson, man. I mean, thanks for that introduction. Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be here.
No, I really appreciate the time. We had some slight difficulties, and kudos to Marcel because he was super patient with me. So thank you very much. I did a lot of research building up to this, and there was this one particular kid, I can't remember his name, and he'd absolutely nailed it and smashed it out of the park. And I couldn't find anything online about you in terms of personal behind the scenes kind of stuff. You are quite a private guy, which I respect, and I didn't want to plagiarize this kid's incredible work at researching all about you. So I thought I'd do it differently, but seeing as we've got a bit of a background there, I know we spoke about it a little bit before, just talk me through what you've got back on those shelves.
Those are Funko Pops, man. So yeah, it's like a lot of things. It starts with one, then it starts with two, and then it's got out of hand, you know? So it's like story of my life.
Okay. You were saying they're all musical based.
The most are, you got some other stuff, but most is musical. If you can see here, it's like Alice in Chains, TLC, Guns N' Roses. You got Notorious B.I.G., Michael Jackson. So it's a lot of music,
Yeah, that's quite a range of genres.
Sorry?
It's quite a range of genres, like different types of music. B.I.G. with his rap and Michael Jackson with his kind of pop. You've built a reputation as one of the kind of MMA go-to insiders. And let's start kind of at the beginning. Growing up in Netherlands, was there something about the country's rich kind of kickboxing or combat sports culture that drew you into MMA?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I started watching kickboxing actually before I knew about MMA. It's like kickboxing is more mainstream in the Netherlands. It wasn't back then either, but it's more mainstream as of lately. I mean, if you ask back in the day to people who's Remy Bonjasky or Peter Arts, they probably don't know, only if you're into the combat sports. And now Remy is pretty much known, but actually Rico Verhoeven, if you ask anybody's grandmother who Rico Verhoeven is, she probably knows, you know what I mean? So that's getting more mainstream. And the thing is with kickboxing, when I started following, K1 was pretty big, and yeah, there was like a massive DVD set. I think there were 18 DVDs of all the K1 tournaments, and they were on discount, so I bought them all, and I started watching. And there was also an MMA fight on that card of one of the K1, and that's what intrigued me actually with MMA. So, yeah, I went to watch more MMA from that kind of the kind of moment. Still was more into K1 kickboxing at that moment, but at a certain moment MMA took more over, and now I watch kickboxing here and there, but MMA has always been my, like, how do you say that? If there is anything MMA, but there's kickboxing, I watch always MMA. You know what I mean? So
it's an interesting one because obviously kickboxing is massive in Netherlands. Why do you think we don't see more people kind of at that top level nowadays from the Netherlands and with the kickboxing style?
it has with kickboxing or in MMA, you mean?
In MMA, so transitioning over.
It has to do with the ground game, man. I mean, if you look at it, listen, we have now Renier de Ridder in the UFC. He came from one, and he's actually the other way around. He's really good on the ground, and his striking is like not as great as a lot of guys in the Netherlands. If you look at Jarno, who's also in the UFC now, Jarno is a really good guy, but he also struggles with the ground game, with the grappling, and he trains a lot of grappling. It's just like for MMA, you got to be like really like an Alex Pereira is really good in kickboxing, and his ground game, I don't know how good his ground game is because he's not been taken down a lot of times, because he's fighting a lot of strikers. I got to have luck with that. But at the same time, remember when Joanna Jędrzejczyk was in the UFC, she had to deal with grapplers, but her takedown defense was good. nine out of 10 times, so she could implement her game plan with the striking. And the thing is, like, listen, if you can do both, you're already like very far, I think, if you can do both. But I mean, most guys from here, they're really into the striking because it started all with kickboxing for a lot of them. Kickboxing you have like, I think you have like, if you have to go to a real good wrestling school, you have to go to Amsterdam to Bert Kops. He's like a wrestler, and most of the guys who want to train their wrestling go to Bert Kops in Amsterdam. So. Besides that, you have some MMA gyms or where they train MMA. You got like Stefan Struve, who was in the UFC. He had Bob Schreiber. You can train MMA there as well. Obviously, everything Stefan learned, he learned it from Bob. I remember when they asked Stefan in the US, like, what is your belt? And he's like, what belt? I learned everything from Bob. You know what I mean? So it's like it's totally different here, and yeah, it's I don't know if it's really a good thing. I think it's getting better. But at the same time, you have like how do you say that? Promotions who have like those kickboxing MMA kind of fights, where they have like they do MMA, but you can only be at a certain like 30 seconds on the ground or 35 seconds, then you have to be up. Well, it's not good. You can survive 30 seconds, and then you can stand up and you can knock the guy out. You have like a 7-0 record, for example, and then you go to the US and you get like an American wrestler against you, and you're screwed. You know what I mean? So it's not always that good to do it like that, but there is improving. You got LFL in the Netherlands, who has a guy, Mario Pinto, on the Dana White Contender Series. That was their champion on that card. So. You got Cage Warriors Lowlands, which is more amateur based, but I mean, most guys have to start like amateur to go to the pro, so that's all good, it's a development. So yeah, I mean, I think it's better than a couple of years ago if you look at MMA, but still a lot to improve, man. We're not at the level of like what's coming up now, what's an upcoming like Australia. I think Australia's doing really well in MMA.
Spain and Georgia, yeah.
Bro, Spain has made such a big thing with Ilia. I know, for example, that like the subscriptions for Eurosport, which are in Spain, I think they have been doubled or tripled since Ilia won the title.
Wow.
So yeah, he's really big, man. I think a lot of people underestimate how big he is. And you saw that when he was like, when he was in the Bernabeu, at Real Madrid before the game. He's really big. So it's like, that's going to be a massive fight, him versus Max Holloway later this month. So yeah, look forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. It's going to be fantastic. It's only, 3 weeks away. In for a real treat. You didn't just become a fan of MMA, though. You've made it into a career. Was there a moment or event where you realised you wanted to take the leap from being a passionate fan to becoming a professional journalist?
My dream when I was a kid was always to be a sports journalist, but into football or soccer, how they call it in the US, for people in the US watching football. That was always my dream, but I let that dream go at a certain moment. Was like, yeah, I'm not going to get that through school probably, because I was at school kind of a joker, you know what I mean? I'm not that serious kind of guy. A lot of people think I'm a really serious kind of guy. I'm not, absolutely not actually. But in my work I am, but out of that, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the thing. And I always wanted that. So with the thing at a certain moment, starting with friends, like an MMA website or MMA page, it's like you can still do those kind of things. Like, but it's not like, and you cannot make your work out of it, And now since 2022, I could make my work out of it, which is great, obviously. I love doing it, and I think I get a lot of good reviews from people about it. Listen, there are also people who are critical, which is good, man. I mean, you are never too old to learn, I guess, and that's for sure. But overall, most people are nice. So I think as long as people are happy with what I do, I probably do it good, I think,
I think you do an absolutely fantastic job.
Thanks, bro.
I wanted to speak about, because it's something slightly different compared to what I'm used to, and most people kind of start off with a big kind of social media push, but you co-founded MMA DNA, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What inspired you to start your own platform in that sense, and then how did it grow from a small project into kind of a bigger entity, should we call it?
Yeah, man. So I got to start from the real beginning. So I was working at the mall, and I walked into like an old classmate of me, or was actually one year older, and he's like, "We should start something with MMA, dude. I mean, you love MMA, I love MMA. Let's start a Facebook page." I was like, if you can set it up, I will help you out with it. So that was MMA Finest. I don't know when that was, but it's a real long. I think it was around the UFC 145, 150, somewhere there. So yeah, we started it, and at a certain moment, I came in contact with a guy from the Netherlands who started UFC Netherlands, which is UFC Nederland, which means UFC Netherlands. It was an unofficial page. So he started that, and he has asked me like, "Do you want to join me?" I was like, yeah, why not? And I asked the other guy, he's like, for sure, if you want, you can go, it's no problem, because he didn't have a lot of time anymore as well. So I went to there, and we did pretty well. Our goal was to get the UFC broadcasted on Dutch TV and to get a UFC event to the Netherlands, which happened both, so that's good. We went from, I think, when I joined, it was like 15, 20K Facebook, and then when I left was 50K. There was some problems at a certain moment with the main guy, with the boss from that. So I went to MMA DNA. We started something on our own. So you got to see, like, there were like, in that group were 7 guys, and like 4 of the 7 guys went to MMA DNA. We started something on our own. So, and that's where it started off. We had a website, we had like Facebook, Instagram, whatever, Twitter, and posted from there. But I also posted a lot on my personal account, So, and at a certain moment, because I think it's because I posted also a lot about ACB and ACA, like those Russian that Russian organization, which is now called ACA. I got some DMs also from fighters about it. I got DMs from managers about it for some reason. And I keep talking to them. And at a certain moment, I also got my sources, which I use for MMA DNA, which was good. Yeah, and that's pretty much how it got established. And we also did kickboxing there, because 2 of the guys at MMA DNA really had a love for kickboxing, and they had access to it. So they also went to kickboxing events, doing we're talking to fighters there, interviewing and that kind of stuff. So we did pretty much a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? So. And that I did till 2021, and then I went to Eurosport in 2022. Yeah.
Because you've laid that story out like it was kind of like a super simple, easy kind of journey. What's the realities of trying to do something like that?
Yeah, you got to work together well, of course, and you have to you have to, how do I say that? You got to know what everybody's task is to do, and what everybody brings to the table. The other guys were better with the kickboxing stuff, which is good, and I think I was better with the MMA stuff, with the news. So, and that came together, and I think at a certain moment, not just in the Netherlands, but also like international, you saw MMA DNA, that name, you saw it more often, because we had breaking news many times, and that was good, and yeah, how we did it. It was really like a bunch of guys who loved the sport, who became friends because of the other network where we on first. And we expanded that in a website, and with socials, and like those 2 guys is like Stefan and Michael. They had good contact with kickboxing guys, like also with all the kickboxing guys like Melvin Manov, Andy Sauer, Remy Bonjasky, Ernesto Hoost. So they had good contacts with them. So that was we had good access to them. And for me, it was more the MMA kind of side, and I had good contacts with some other guys, like more international guys. I think the Dutch, I have some good contact with the Dutch now, with the most, but it's more difficult. They don't give you that much news that quickly, because they know if we posted it, we are a Dutch media, people think they leaked it to us. You know what I mean? So they are not like. They rather give it probably to somebody in the US, and then it looks like the opponent leaked the stuff. You know what I mean? So I can't understand that, but it's what it is. But it's just like it just came out of nowhere, pretty much. It's like we were just consistent with posting and that kind of stuff, and then you get noticed, and when you get noticed and people are like, yeah, it's good what they're doing, then you get more of that thing rolling. You know what I mean? That's pretty much how it went. It's also how it went with Twitter and X for me.
Yeah. Reporting on a sport that you're clearly so passionate about must be exciting, but a delicate balance. I I have it sometimes. I mean, I struggle sometimes to watch every pay-per-view just because it can get so intense. How do you manage to stay objective focused while still keeping the fire alive as an MMA fan?
Yeah, man. It's like, listen, I always say everybody who's watching, and journalists can say they don't have, but everybody has favorite fighters. It's pretty obvious, and you follow the sport not because you like to see fights, but you like to see certain people fight, and that gets you into the sport pretty much. I mean, I just like to watch it, and it's for me, it's like I always set my standards pretty low. So the thing is, if you put your standards very high, a lot of things are gonna suck when you watch it, because then you're like, oh, I thought this was gonna be a better car. Like last week, 307. Let's be really honest, that car wasn't good. Besides the main event was
Yeah,
super entertaining. But still the card wasn't good. But at least you went out with something like, wow, that main event was something. But it wasn't great. And then it's like, is it a tough watch? Yeah, it is sometimes. But at the same time, I'm working on the Eurosport website. I'm doing socials for Eurosport during I hate that word, during the events. So I'm awake. So for me, it's no problem. And I just sleep afterwards.
mm.
So that's okay. I'm also like I try to, how do you say that? I'm pretty much awake on the North American times a lot of times, so it's not that hard for me.
Yeah. Your routine's lent, and the work that you do is lent yourself to keeping that routine.
I mean, I hate the Macau times, that card. I absolutely hate it, that I have to wake up at 9 a.m. Uh, so,
Yeah. Um, every journalist remembers, or I'd like to think would remember their first big break. What was yours? And do you remember the first major story you scooped and how that made you feel when the MMA world kind of took notice of it?
first big break. That's a good question.
There's just been too many.
No, don't want to be like that. I don't mean that way, but it's like, listen, we had back then the date for Whitaker Izzy,
Yeah.
the first one. We had that one, but I think it was like, I don't know if exactly. I think it was October 7th, but we said October 8th, and the thing was like it was October 8th in Australia. You know what I mean? So that's
Okay.
where we screwed up a little bit, and we had it for Sydney, but it went to Melbourne because there was some kind of a rugby nations kind of thing, but it was supposed to go to Sydney first, but it went to Melbourne. So I think I also broke RDA against Makachev. That fight that didn't happen for a
Okay.
fight
Yeah.
night. That was a main event I broke. I probably had some more, but it's like I can't remember, dude. I honestly can't remember which one was the biggest we broke. I think the Whitaker Adesanya one was pretty big back then when we broke it. So that was
Yeah.
still at MMA DNA, by the way. So I think that was.
We see breaking fight announcements and behind the scenes news all the time, but the process itself kind of remains a mystery. We're both football fans, and I always think you're my MMA Fabrizio Romano,
Yeah.
and I'm always his pictures when he's posting them, kind of showing him working. It's always him on the phone. But how does it actually go down? Are you actually on the phone like all through the night, or is it a bit more organized and strategized?
Mostly doing with messages, Instagram, WhatsApp, DM, Twitter. Even emails. I'm not really into how do you say that call. Sometimes I do on the phone, but not a lot. And it's just like checking and seeing if it's true or not. Sometimes you hear something and you're gonna check if it's true. I still have to always be patient. Sometimes you know something and one side confirms, but the other side don't say anything. Or they just say like, no, we didn't got it. And it's like, but I know it's true. And it's like, no, no, we don't got anything. It's like, okay, cool. So then I can't do anything with it. But that's pretty much what I do. And sometimes like for example, when there is a fight announced, I got always like DM from people like, why haven't you put that on your Instagram yet? Why haven't you put that on X yet? Because I only have one site. I mean, I can post it, it's probably true, but then I would pretty much copy paste somebody else's work without knowing if the other side is true. And if I only have one side, yeah, then I would have to wait till the UFC posts it officially. If I don't get it any other way, it is what it is. So that's what happened last time with what was that fight again? It was also a UFC fight. I don't know which one it was. And then people were like, this was out like 5 weeks ago. It's like, yeah, I know, but I only got one side, and that other side never said anything back, or what can I do? It's now the same thing with that fight with Carlos Prates against Randy Brown. Randy Brown says it's in December in Vegas, and Carlos Prates says it's in New York in November. I mean, what's going to happen? I hear from the other side it's December. The other side says it's November. So what do you want me to post? I think I got like 10 DMs from people. Why haven't you posted? Yeah, that's why I haven't posted. I don't know what's going to happen. Just waiting.
With constant fight updates, changes, and breaking news, the MMA world can be quite chaotic. How do you keep yourself grounded and handle the pressure when everything's moving really, really quickly around you?
Just writing stuff down, man. And the thing is, like, I always had something with names. So when I see a name one or two times, I can spell the name, I can write the name, and I can remember the name. So that has always been very handy. Definitely with MMA, with some crazy names. So when I see a matchup, then I know about it. And normally when I see some matchup somewhere, but I haven't been confirmed it myself, I just write it down where I saw it. So when I post it, I can credit the person who had it first. If that's is that the answer what you were looking for? I don't know if I've answered your question there.
Oh yeah, and I think when it's really, really busy for you, and you've got, I don't know, a card's semi been announced. Say, if we look at like the Canada card that's coming on November the 2nd as an example, when you're like starting to work towards trying to get announcements for that, how do you kind of balance your kind of lifestyle for like pleasure, I guess, and also keeping on top of stuff? Is there much of a balance, or is it just all go?
Basically all go, dude. I mean, when it's there, it's there, and when it's not, it's not. Sometimes you have like a fight announcement. Maybe sometimes you have 1 in 2 weeks, and sometimes you have like 4 in 1 day. It's like, it's super weird, man. It comes or it doesn't. Sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't. It's like, I'm happy. It doesn't depend. I'm not dependent with the fight announcement with the Eurosport, because then it would be more difficult. I just have my normal tasks there, like writing articles and that kind of stuff, I do social media stuff. But, with fight announcements, sometimes you have weeks, you have so many, man. For example, sometimes you have like 10 in 2 days, and then you have a week with only 3. It's so weird. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, speaking of articles, when I was doing my research, I looked on the Eurosport's website and I saw that you've done, what was it? Let me just get the number right. 1,692 articles for Eurosports. Now that's hell of a going. How do you kind of commit to that consistency?
Yeah, just like we just have like, how do you say that, certain rules we made which we have to put out. So for me, I have to write a preview for the main card for every card. Also like a little bit of a teaser article, like on Friday, like a day before the event. On Monday, how late it starts, where we can watch it, who does the commentary in Dutch, that kind of stuff. And then you still have the articles with the big fights, or you have like a main event announcement for a certain card. You have to do an article. So that, and plus we have interviews here and there, and when it's like an important interview with a big name or something, they want to have that, you have to make an article about it, with some clips. So that's basically what I do, and there's always something more. We try to keep up with the Dutch fighters as well. So when there's a Dutch fighter in Bellator and Cage Warriors, we write about it. We had the Cage Warriors broadcast rights for 2 years. We didn't have it this year, so there are also some articles about Cage Warriors, and also preview articles on that promotion. So basically that. And like I said, there was a big fight, for example, like when for the Dutch fighters. We do separate articles, obviously. We also did a separate article for Oki, the Belgian guy who fought Chris Duncan, because we have also some Belgian viewers, because like neighbor country, right? So, yeah, that basically, and I mean, whatever comes, sometimes there's something extra. You need to adjust to that. And during the, how do you say that, with the events, we do the official weigh-ins article, like almost everybody does. Do a recap in Dutch where I go through all the fights on the card. Basically, that's how many times I said basically during this conversation, but that's what I do.
When you're saying, obviously, because you do cover so many different kind of events and different promotions, if you got a favorite promotion, I'm gonna guess you're gonna say the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
If we say not the UFC, then
Ooh, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of promotions I really like to watch, man. My favorite promotion a couple of years ago, besides the UFC, was ACA. The ACA is kind of it went harder to watch over here. So the moment they asked for money, and it wasn't that much of a problem, but you had to like go to the website, and I couldn't find the link, and then I was annoyed by it, and I was like, okay, whatever, make it easier on us. Now I've seen a little bit more again. One championship was fun. But they started to do more Muay Thai, kickboxing, grappling kind of stuff. And I don't mind it, but I'm really into MMA. So when your product is like 5% MMA, it's like for me, like, yeah, okay, PFL, I enjoy PFL, but I still think the rules sometimes are really off. It's like really weird when you can knock out somebody in the second fight of the regular season and then fight them in the semifinals again. Seems like super weird. I know it happens because the guy can have like 6 points for the first fight, so you can get to him in the semifinal again, but it's just weird. And with Bellator, yeah, man, I was in the Bellator rankings panelist, before they went co-promoting or whatever with PFL, or they took over. PFL took them over. But right now it's so difficult where to put Bellator, right? Don't you think it's difficult to where to put Bellator because they are like under the PFL? And I think most of their champions won actually with the PFL versus Bellator kind of fight, so it's super odd, And yeah, and there are some good European organizations, Cage Wars, KSW, Octagon is coming up, So I prefer. I watch all UFC, and that's pretty much obvious because I work for Eurosport and they have the broadcaster rights, so it makes the most sense. But yeah, I also watch other promotions. But I'll be honest, I kind of slowed down a couple of years ago because I was watching way too much, way too much, and it wasn't good.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that Fight Pass subscription's been well used.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular, maybe slightly underground, maybe something more Netherlands-based kind of promotion that you think could make a break into becoming something more mainstream?
Yeah, I think LFL is doing well, man. I mean, LFL, they have some homegrown talent, and they also have some like good talents from around the world. Like I said earlier, like Mario Pinto, he's running Contender Series this Tuesday. He's the heavyweight champion not anymore, obviously, because he left now, but he was the heavyweight champion. Alain van der Merk was supposed to be on the Contender Series next week, but he's not. He's signed with KSW now, so he's not. And Yusri Belgaroui fought on the Contender Series, one of the few guys who got a finish and not got a contract. He was also in Alex Pereira's corner this week. He is like in the last couple of 3-4 fights of Alex. I still think he will be signed by the UFC, man. I'm sure if he doesn't get signed, Alex probably holds Dana by gunpoint or something. But yeah, he will get signed eventually, I think. But yeah, they are some good fighters, and also like former UFC, former Bellator fighters have fought there, man, in LFL. So yeah, it's a good mix of young talent. Established guys and up and comers, I think. So, yeah, I think that's a good promotion, and that's actually the you got Cage Warriors Lowlands as well, but it's mostly like amateur fights. But LFL is like they have like two cards. They have a pro card and they have an amateur card. The amateur card is mostly before the pro card, and then the pro card starts. So, I mean, yeah, that's fun.
In a career full of kind of success and highlights, there's always I think for a lot of people that I've spoken to, kind of one moment that stands out. What's been the most surreal or unexpected maybe experience that you've had whilst you covered MMA?
I really like. It's really cool when obviously people who you like give you credit, or they say we love the work you do. I had for example, the Brazilian interpreter Fabiano in the
Yeah,
UFC.
yeah, yeah.
I started following him, and he DM'd me. It's like, dude, I love this work you do. So, and obviously, I love the work he does as well. So, that's really cool. I had Alan Juban reaching out to me about that he likes the work I do. It's those kind of things, Actually, the guys you really like, and they do. You see on TV doing great stuff, they like your work as well, and that's always cool when somebody or when even when managers are saying like, dude, you do the right thing, how you do it, we really like what you're doing, and your work is valued. So that's cool, that's where I think like that's awesome, when people saying like, yeah, or like Terrence McKinney said yesterday, like if it's not on Big Marcel's page, then then it's probably not true. That's cool, man. I'm not gonna be like retweeting that stuff, like, oh, look at me, look what he says about me, But I see the tweet, and it's cool to read, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd be the opposite. I couldn't help it if I was getting all of those. I'd be like, whoa, I'm completely overwhelmed by it all. It leads well to my next question, actually. Journalists, I think in general, especially when we see them at events and things like that, they walk a fine line when it comes to relationships with fighters.
Mhm.
How do you, or how have you built rapport with fighters while maintaining a professional distance? And has it ever been a challenge for you as well?
Honestly, that's difficult, man, because like I always said, I see myself as a reporter. My title is freelance journalist for Eurosport. I see myself as a reporter, but I have to stay unbiased. You know what I mean? So I cannot like cheer for the one guy or another. I will not. You will never see me post something on Twitter like "Let's go, Poatan, what's up, great." I would say like when for example when Marab won, like congrats to Marab, great fight. For something like that. Doesn't mean that I'm a fan. I like Marab a lot, but it's not like that. I try to put him up and O'Malley down. That's not the truth, But that's difficult, because at a certain moment when I also do picks predictions for a preview show with Adam Martin on the MMA Oddsbreaker channel. So last time I had one fighter after he fought and won. He's actually fighting this weekend. Who fought and won? He DM'd me. He's like, "I beat your boy." I was like, "What do you mean you beat my boy?" He's like, "Yeah, I saw what you said on the preview show." I was like, "Dude, I just have to give a pick. Doesn't mean that I don't want you to win. I'm just thought this was going to happen." He's like, "Yeah, you saw it wasn't going to happen." It's like, "Yeah, good." It's like, "Congratulations," But yeah, that happens. What do you want? I got to give my picks. It's just the way it is. And I always pick who I think will win, not who I want to win, So that's also a thing. But yeah, sometimes it's difficult, because fighters can take it personally if you don't pick them for some reason, which is nothing personal to me. I just think, listen, if I give you a fight, you say who you think is going to win. Doesn't have to mean that you want that person to win, It's just what you think. So.
Hmm. Taking the journalist hat off just for a second,
Hmm.
currently at this moment in time, who would you say is your favorite fighter and why?
Favorite fighter. I don't have one. I have multiple guys I really like, so I don't have one. Man, I've been really on the Ilia Tapua hype train since he's been before he was in the UFC. I'll tell you a story why. I was at a local event, not a local, it was actual Cage Warriors, but it was in Belgium, The main event was Brian Boulan from Belgium against Ilia Tapua. And Ilia Tapua was obviously undefeated, and he had only submission wins on his name, I think. And he was fighting out of Alicante, Spain. So I was looking at it and it's like, did they get this guy to get Boulan a title? Like they found an undefeated guy somewhere in Europe. I didn't know Ilia back then. To fight Brian Boulan in front of his home crowd and get the title. So then the weigh-in was Ilia was too heavy, so he couldn't win the title. Was at 135. So they fought, and I think he tapped him, and he didn't even tap him. He finished him within 1 minute 20 seconds by anaconda choke. And everybody was like, "What the hell is happening here?" And it was flawless. And since that moment, and then he went to Brave. He never fought in Cage Warriors. I think Jack Shore was the champion or no, Jack Shore was the top contender back then. And also Jack Shore got interviewed afterwards, and they were like, "Do you fight Tapuria?" And he was like, "Yeah, but he can't make weight." So Tapuria never fought for Cage Warriors after that again. He went to Brave, and he won there. And then he came to the UFC and fought Yusuf Salal on short notice. And we know where he is now. He's a champion now. So I've been high on Ilia Tapua for a long time. I remember when he was fighting Bryce Mitchell, a lot of people were like, there's odds okay with Ilia being the favorite. It's like, yeah, man, I'm fully convinced Ilia is going to win this fight. A lot of people were on Bryce Mitchell, and Ilia won that fight. So he's just really good, does he win against Max? We'll see. I don't know. I'm not going to give my pick yet. I will think about it a little bit more. But he's a guy I'm really high on. I give you one, man. I can give you more, but Ilia is a guy I'm really high on.
That's great, and I love that story as well. From seeing Ilia join the UFC, then you were saying previously, and I don't know that much before the UFC. You were saying he was getting a lot of submission wins, but since he's joined the UFC, he's getting a lot of knockouts, TKOs. Why do you think that that's been so different with the higher level of opponent?
I think he just developed as a mixed martial artist, He was like more of a ground guy, a BJJ guy before. And he just developed and he got heavy hands, I think that's just being a part of being development because he's still only 27 or something, He's super young still. So, yeah, that's what I think. Why?
With so much fight news flying around and you've kind of alluded to the commitment to this role that you have. I'm sure you've also had your fair share of, should we call it, chaos? What's the craziest or most unexpected fight announcement or cancellation that you've had to report?
Oh, dude, don't you know me and the Paddy story?
I may have heard this in my research and I was hoping.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the craziest. Now, I got told from obviously the other side that Paddy was out and that Van Ramini was going to fight Cameron Van Camp. But at that moment, I couldn't bring Cameron Van Camp up because I haven't checked it with Cameron. So I asked the other side, it's like, can I say that Luigi's going to fight somebody else, but not the opponent? Yeah, of course. So I did. But at that moment, for me, Paddy was out. So I didn't even think like, oh, let's bother Paddy with this shit. He's out. He's probably annoyed already by it. So I posted it and Paddy went crazy on Twitter like, yeah, I'm not out. What are you talking about? It's like, okay, maybe. So I went back to my source. He's like, yeah, maybe Paddy doesn't know yet or something. I don't know, but it's legit. Like we got like 2 days ago, we got it told already from the UFC, I got it on my email. So it's like, okay, then actually a teammate of Van Ramini reached out to me. He's like, dude, Luigi's already 3 days training for Van Camp. Paddy is out. It's like, okay. Then Guillermo Cruz from MMA Fighting also reporting that Paddy is out. And Paddy is still denying it, So then I get the message from the guy who initially told me, and he's like, "There's some crazy shit." I was like, "What's up?" Yeah, got told by the UFC that they put Paddy in back. It's like, what the hell what's that even possible? He's like, yeah, he had some problem with how do you say that, with the customs or whatever, with the visa, and but they can do like a quick interview or whatever, and they can still get him in. So, okay, great. Now I'm screwed, because I put that out. And then the guy says like, you just post whatever and I'll retweet it and I say this was legit when I gave it to you. So, okay, let's do it. And Paddy was still upset that that I didn't want to delete the initial tweet that I put out, And that's like, if I delete it, then it looks like I acted like I posted something that was not true, but at that moment it was. It just, everything goes fast in MMA world, like you just said, and something happened. So obviously the fight happened. Paddy went on a rant for like 48 hours to me. I even apologized, and he kept going for a rant until another journalist came up with an old clip of his, and then he stopped. He was like, I'm done with Twitter, I'm going. So I don't want to talk anymore. But yeah, that was actually the craziest that happened. And I mean, I listen. Did I had to reach out to Paddy? You can say I should have maybe, at the same time, for me, it was like I wanted to commit to defend Ramini Van Camp fight at that moment. So for me, when they say Paddy was off, but apparently he was back in. So what can you do, man?
It's almost like he saw what you wrote and thought, actually, no, I want to. I want the fight again, just to prove him wrong. I like to, in this podcast, kind of put a segment in about people that are aspiring to be journalists, content creators, or whatever it is they want to be from their passion. For the next generation of MMA journalists looking up to kind of like what you do, what advice would you give them about standing out and succeeding in this really competitive industry?
A, be consistent. B, don't be fanboying. C, be serious and focus on a certain thing you want to do. Don't be all over the place. Like, you have people like, oh, I want to do funny stuff in MMA, and then you want to be serious, and then that doesn't work. You cannot doing let's put a funny clip together from Poatan against Jamal Hill. Like a fun edit where he does that, that signature thing, and then making fun of that, and then do a serious fight announcement or do a serious interview with Jamal Hill. That doesn't make sense. Do one of the other things. So also, what I know a lot of people do that, but listen, when I was not in media, I also did it, but now I try not to do it. Making pictures with fighters, you can do it. I'm not saying anything about it, but I know that like the more established journalists who are there at the events, if they see it, don't take you serious, and if the UFC sees us, you're screwed. Because if they see it, they probably take away your media pass. Unless you're a content creator, they probably don't give a shit. But if you're a journalist, they do. So and don't. How do you say that? Yeah, I don't know if you saw it recently, man, with Matt Frivola on Twitter. That was a French outlet. I forgot their name. Frivola didn't reply to them or whatever, and then they talk shit to him when he was fighting Faris Siam. I was like, yeah, you can't do that, even if it's for fun or whatever, but that just doesn't look good on you. And they're like, yeah, but Faris is from our country. You have to back him. No, you don't have to. You can back him, but you can do that in a different way, So, I mean, if Rainier, for example, fights Gerald Meerschaert, I like Gerald a lot, so I'm not going to cheer online that if Rainier wins, that Gerald loses or whatever, because I like Gerald a lot too, It's just for the Netherlands, it would be great if Rainier wins, We can use that win in the UFC. I mean, I think Jarno had against Stephen Wynn. He had the last win in like 4 years for a Dutch fighter in the UFC. So we can use the win, but at the same time, I wish Gerald all the best, and he's always been cool to me. So why would I be against him? Because he didn't get born here, where I'm from. It doesn't make sense to me, So just be cool to people. Cool people will be cool back to you. I think that's always my thing. If you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. If you're a punk to me, I'm pretty much more of a punk to you. So yeah, that's basically how it is,
I won't be a punk, don't worry. You've scared me off. From the experience that you've gained from doing this, and this is one of my favourite questions. If you could sit down with yourself when you first started this hobby that's transcended into a career, what would you tell that individual in terms of maybe something you'd do differently, or just leaving a bit of advice?
I tell the person that it takes a lot of time. That is like a lot of hours, and a lot of hours you won't get back, But at the end of the day, it has been worth it because I could make it my job. You know what I mean? So it was worth it. And what would I tell myself? I would tell myself to do better in school, so I would have been maybe a better path to it, But yeah, well, listen, man, I'm happy with the way it went, But at the same time, I feel like it could have been better if I maybe did better at school. I maybe did more what wasn't a little bit more serious, But with this thing, I've always been pretty serious. So I'm okay with the way it went, but I want to keep doing this. So yeah, that's more the thing. Like, how can I keep doing this? How can I keep going? Let the ball rolling. You know what I mean? So that's more what I'm concerned by. But you just got to start, and you got to believe, and you got to make sure you're legit what you're doing, and that you're trustworthy. That's the most important thing. People got to trust you in what you do. If you just put out something and it's not true, listen, it can happen one time. Everybody can be wrong one time. But try to not make it happen. I always say, like, try to be right instead of being first. Being first is fun, but you have to be 100% right if you have to be first. Don't be like, I want to be first, but yeah, am I right? 60% maybe. No, you want to be at least 99%.
Okay, I like that. One thing that really fascinates me,
Yeah.
particularly with the UFC, is seeing how it's kind of ridden that social media wave so well, to the point where I think I was looking the other day and it's got more followers on Instagram like the than the NFL. Have you seen the way that fighters approach the media evolve whilst you've been doing this? And do you think the relationship between fighters and journalists has shifted due to that? And if so, how?
I think there's the problem, if there is a problem these days, there's a difference between journalism and content creating. You know what I mean? Content creating is a little bit more free. You can joke around with the fighter. You can be like Nina Drama, asking odd stuff, and they're gonna laugh about it, and it's good. Listen, I can't go to a female report or female fighter and ask her, like, what's your body count, for example. I don't want to ask that, but you know what I mean. It's like totally different. So, and that's the thing. A lot of people don't understand the difference between a content creator and a journalist. It's like, and that's also when people say, like, oh, Ina, Guru, who else do we have? They have all more fun interviews or questions to fighters than the actual journalist. The journalist have to keep a certain way of asking to the fighter. They cannot go all out, like that. They have to keep it to the sport. They can ask about personal life, obviously, but it's still a little bit of like a gray area what you can ask and what you can't ask, So it cannot always be like loose and fun. It sometimes has to be a little bit more critical, but sometimes they go a little bit over the top with the journalists, then they're just annoying, and then I'm annoyed. Then I understand that certain fighters are annoyed by it, but yeah, I always try to, how do you say that? When I do interviews or when I approach fighters, I always try to keep it like casual, but not too much. I have maybe 2 or 3 guys I'm really good with. I would say they are friends of mine. They would say the same about me. So I can screw around with them, even when they have when they lose a fight, I'm like, dude, you look like shit. But I'm just saying for fun, and they know I say it for fun, and I just get a middle finger back from them. So with a smiley. But normally when I'm not really too close to a fighter, but I talk to him often, and that person loses or wins, I just say, great job, well done, great win, But I do it by DM, Or if he loses and he's down, I was like, come on, dude, next time you will be good again, Keep believing. So I always try to keep it nice to fighters and clean, And I think they appreciated that overall, because I think if, like, the fighters who know me, I don't think a lot, but the fighters who know me, they will say, like, he's okay, we don't mind him or whatever. But you gotta make sure that you're not, like I said, I've got 2 or 3 guys I'm really good, so I consider them my friends, but I don't want to be, and not that I don't want to be friendly or whatever, but don't be too close to certain fighters because you're going to get biased. You know what it is? That's not good. For example, I did also give my scores for MMA decisions back in the day, like 2 or 3 years ago. For 2 or 3 fighters, I never gave my scores because I consider them my friends, So I'm not going to score the fight. Even I can be not biased. I just don't do it. You know what I mean?
Because if you scored it for them and it was potentially arguable, should we call it, then people could see you as being biased. Yeah,
it's like a 50-50 fight, which could either go either way, And you scored at 29, you scored at around 10-9 for that fighter. Well, like 75% of people would think the other fighter should get a 10-9, and people know about you. Talk to that fighter a lot, They're like, yeah, of course you score for them. You got to get that out of the way, I mean, I don't need that, and I don't think that's necessary. Even when I'm not biased when I'm scoring. So,
Last question.
Yeah.
We'll make it a fun one. If you could put together a dream fight, any fighters from any era, who would you love to see go to head to head, and why?
I'm not going to say Anderson Silva GSP because everybody says it all the time. Let's put like prime John Jones against prime Fedor.
Okay.
Let's do that for the heavyweight. And then I want to have like the John Jones from the light heavyweight era where he was at his prime at heavyweight against Fedor in his prime when he was like 10 years undefeated in the pride time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That, I would pay money to see that fight, you know? So yeah, a lot of people also say Fedor, Brock Lesnar, but I'm not too intrigued by that one. I'm more intrigued by Fedor against Jones, for example. You say I could put every fighter, so yeah, that's probably it, you know? And man, yeah, you asked just for one. We keep it with that one.
No, we could do more. That was great. That was great. I love your intelligence and knowledge as well on this stuff.
Yeah, maybe, man. I really wanted to see Zabit fight for a title, dude, at featherweight. Zabit Magomed Sharipov. But he never went there. So I cannot call that really like a super fight everybody wants to see, probably. You know what I wanted to see back in the day? I wanted to see Jose Aldo fighting at lightweight. That's what I wanted to see. And he got the offer, actually, from the UFC to fight Anthony Pettis. But they wanted him to relinquish his featherweight belt. And he said, like, I will go to lightweight, but I'm not going to give away my featherweight belt. And then they didn't let him go to lightweight, which Conor was supposed to, he did. They let him do that. You know, they had no problem with let him doing that, but Jose wasn't able to do it. So I would have loved to see that. Maybe he would have got it like a double championship back then, you know. Although Pettis was pretty good at that moment. I was surprised back then when he lost to RDA, you know. He was dominant at that moment. So
yeah. I think people forget it, and unfortunately for him, the whole Conor thing just kind of eclipsed his career for most people that then became fans because of Conor, which is a large percentage of casual fan base.
That's a problem, man, you know, and it's to me, it's like, listen, I've been like unfortunate that I've been watching for a much longer time already, you know, so I've also seen Aldo in the WEC, for example, but for me, Aldo is an absolute legend, you know, and in my opinion, and I know a lot of people are annoyed when I say that, still for me, the featherweight GOAT, you know, and that's, you can't, people will say, but he lost to Holloway, he lost to Volkanovski, he lost to Conor. I know, but what he did in the era when he was on top, nobody did that. He had the most title defenses still, you know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. So I always, when people counter me there with that, I always say, do you think Chris Weidman is better than Anderson Silva? You know, and they're like, no. I was like, he got 2 wins against Anderson. You know, so that's always my counter when people say Jose Aldo is not there. But listen, if they say Alexander Volkanovski, I'm good with that as well, you know, because Alexander was close. You know, for me, Alexander was 2, Max is 3, you know, but they're all great. So I have nothing. And for me, title defenses are really important in a legacy, you know. So Conor fans will hate me for this, but because, you know, he doesn't have a title defense. But for me, it's just like, the thing is, it's so hard, I think, if you're a champion to keep defending that belt because you have something to lose in the fight. When you're a challenger, 9 out of 10 times you have nothing to lose unless the UFC doesn't like you and you get maybe one chance. Like, for example, Bilal against Leon Edwards, he had everything to lose because we know if he didn't get the win there, the UFC wasn't going to give him a second title shot. So good for him, he got the win. But obviously, that's one of these times when the challenger actually has a lot to lose there, you know. But normally, like Khalil Roundtree last weekend against Poatan, I think he did great in the first and second round. You know, he gave him a very good fight. But at the same time, I don't think he had much to lose. He was a number 8 on the rankings. Nobody expected him to be there. And I think 90% of the people thought he was going to lose, you know, probably, he had a puncher's chance. I always thought he had, but at the same time, I picked Poatan as well. So yeah, that's basically it, how I see it, you know. I think as a champion, it's super difficult to keep getting to that next level, to keep defending your belt, because you saw also at a certain moment with John Jones, you know, a lot of people, talk crap on John Jones's last title defenses against Anthony Spitt, Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes. I agree, it wasn't looking good, but you got to take in mind how many times he had already defended the title. He's been super dominant at light heavyweight, and I'm not Dana White, who's going to be like John Jones, and I don't mean that, but I give the guy respect, and that he didn't look great in those light heavyweight title defenses. I think he was really like almost bored. Like, here's the next one. Here's the next one. He didn't see the challenge. Now he's at heavyweight. Maybe he sees the challenge again, He made quick work of Surreal gone. Let's see what's next, what he does against Miocic. I think he wins and he retires just like Miocic also does. That's what I think. And then Tommy Aspinall finally gets that the unified belt given to him. I think he earned it. He gets it after Jones retires, but I think he earns it. Yeah, it's just like, it's so weird, man, when you have an interim champion, but he doesn't fight the champion for the belt. It's so weird.
Yeah, and I guess the loyalty that John Jones has shown and the time he spent with the UFC, he kind of deserves it. But I for quite a long time have always been very, very anal about the fact that they're not getting him to fight Tom. I genuinely, I think at this stage in John Jones's career, I do think Tom beats him. And that's not me playing down or condescending the career of John Jones. I don't think that's possible. He's that good. I don't know if we'll see that emulated for the next 10, 15 years. And someone that young to do it for that long. But I'd just like Tom to go out. But I will say, I think Tom's done really well on the media side and has probably got a lot from it, even though the fight's not happened.
I don't understand why so many people are hating on Tom, I mean, he's the interim champion. I understand him fully. He defended the belt, and he wants to fight for a title. It's not that crazy that he is like, why do I have to wait? And I think Jones Aspinall is way more intriguing than Jones Miocic, and that's not hitting on Miocic, but Miocic is getting up in age, hasn't fought for a long time, hasn't got a win anymore against any ranked UFC heavyweight at this moment, So listen, for Stipe, he's been the most successful heavyweight champion in UFC history, if you go by the numbers. So all props to him, and I like him as well a lot. He's a really, really good dude, but I'm also really somebody who likes more into sport kind of thing and competitiveness, so I want to see John Jones against Aspinall as well. Don't think it will happen, but I think that's the fight actually to make. And I understand that Dana comes from how do you say that, from a promoter's kind of view, like the GOAT in his opinion, the GOAT against the GOAT at heavyweight in his opinion, But I think that fight would have made more sense 5 years ago, and then Jones was doing something else at that moment. And then we had DC actually taking on Miocic, and that had to be actually the place where DC was back then, was supposed to be Jones, if you look back at it, but DC did it back then. And now, we still get it. I hope it happens, I hope it happens next month, because if it again gets canceled or it gets like rescheduled, that would be so stupid. I hope it happens.
Yeah, Tom's back up, isn't he, I think? Is that right?
Yeah, it's even disrespectful, I think. But he asked himself for it, I think. But for him to be back up in that fight, I mean, what's going to happen? Imagine Jones pulls out. Do we really going to see Aspinall fighting Miocic? I don't think so. So, I don't know.
Well, we'll see. I'll look forward to that fight coming out now, and then I'll clip some of this up and we can... Marcel, I want to say a massive thank you, particularly for being patient with me whilst we experience some technical difficulties. Maybe one day when I'm on a podcast and someone asks me what's your most stressful experience, then I can go more into detail about what happened today. But yeah, thank you very much.
No problem, man. This was fun to be here, man. Thank you for inviting me.